If you like real stories about betrayal, consequences, and men finally standing up for themselves, hit subscribe and stick around. Because I took my wife to a party, she left with another man, and the next morning her key didn't fit our door. My name's Mark. I'm 52, I work with my hands, and for the last 23 years I honestly thought I was a pretty good husband. I'm not perfect, but I showed up. I built a life the slow way. Overtime, scraped knuckles, saving instead of flexing. I run a small metal fabrication shop just outside of town. Custom smoker rigs, railings, odd jobs, the kind of work where you come home smelling like steel and sweat, not cologne in conference rooms. My wife, Jenna, was the shiny side of our relationship. Marketing job downtown, nice clothes, heels that clicked across the hardwood like a metronome. People always said we were a good balance. I kept us grounded. She kept us moving forward. For a long time that felt true. Then, sometime in the last year, something shifted. At first, it was little things. She started staying late at work, because the new director pushes us hard. She'd roll her eyes when she walked past me in my work boots and say stuff like, "You know you don't have to look like a construction site all the time, right?" Joking, but not really. She was on her phone more, laughing at messages I never saw, turning the screen away when I walked by. When I'd ask what was so funny, she'd say, "Oh my God, Mark, it's just work memes. Relax." If we went out to dinner, she'd point at some guy at another table and say, "See, that's how men dress now." Like I was some museum exhibit from the 90s. I told myself it was stress. New boss, new expectations, new office culture. Women reinvent themselves at 48 all the time, right? New hair, new clothes, new hobbies. I didn't want to be the insecure husband who panics because his wife bought a different shade of lipstick. Then one night in December, I came home from the shop and found a dress hanging on the closet door. Dark green, tight, expensive. Not the kind of thing you wear to the grocery store. "What's the occasion?" I asked, setting my lunch cooler on the dresser. Jenna was at her vanity, doing something complicated with an eyelash curler. "Company Christmas party," she said, like I should already know that. "I told you last week." "You said you had a party," I reminded her. "You didn't say anything about the Met Gala." She smirked at me in the mirror. "You're coming with me this year." That threw me. For the past 5 years, every time the party came up, she'd say, "You'd hate it, Mark. It's all shop talk and schmoozing. Go play with your fire toys." Meaning my smokers. Suddenly now I'm invited? Why the change? I asked. She shrugged, but her eyes stayed on her reflection. "New director. He wants to meet the team's families. Makes us look more human to clients or whatever." The way she said "new director" was my first red flag. Not the words, the tone. Soft around the edges. A little too bright. I noticed her phone buzzing on the dresser, screen lighting up with a preview. "Can't wait to see that dress tonight." No name, just a number. When she saw me glance at it, she reached over and flipped it face down. "Work," she said. "People coordinating rides." Sure. I stood there a second too long. She caught my eyes in the mirror. "Don't start, Mark," she said. "You've been asking me to include you more. I invite you, you act weird." I swallowed whatever comment was sitting on my tongue. I've welded enough steel to know when you're better off not adding heat. That night, I put on my best suit, the one I wear to funerals and graduations, shined my boots, and drove my wife downtown to a hotel I couldn't afford to spend a night in. The lobby was marble and glass and fake smiles. Everyone smelled like money and expensive perfume. Jenna stepped out of the truck, smoothed her dress, and instantly became Work Jenna. Her laugh went up half an octave. Her shoulders rolled back. She slipped her hand off my arm as we walked in, like she didn't quite want to be seen hanging on me. "Just try to mingle," she said under her breath. "Don't cling." I nodded, filed that away. At the ballroom entrance, she lit up like Times Square. "Oh my God, hi! You look amazing. Love that dress." She vanished into a cluster of colleagues before I'd even adjusted my tie. I found the bar. A guy from her office with 2 white teeth shook my hand, called me buddy, and asked if my smoker business was like a hobby or a real thing. I smiled and told him it paid for the house his Audi was parked in front of. 10 minutes later, I saw Jenna. She was standing with her boss and a man I didn't recognize. Tall, gray at the temples in the on-purpose way, perfectly tailored suit. He held himself like he owned the room, and maybe the building. Jenna's hand was on his forearm as she said something, head tilted back, laughing. Not the laugh I get when I say something dumb in the kitchen. A brighter one. A performance. "Mark," she called, spotting me. "Come here. I want you to meet someone." She pulled me into the circle like she was presenting a project. "This is my husband, Mark. He builds those custom smokers I told you about." The man turned, reached out his hand. His grip was firm but softer office hands. "Ethan," he said. "Account director. I've heard a lot about you." "Yeah?" I asked, because I hadn't heard a damn thing about him. "Jenna says your work is— how did you put it?" He looked at her, and she did that shy little duck of the eyes. "Insanely good," she supplied. "Clients eat up the stories I tell about his builds." That was news to me. At home, if I talked about a big order, she'd scroll her phone and say, "That's nice, honey." I stood there, listening to them talk about branding opportunities and outdoor lifestyle markets, feeling like a prop. Every so often, his hand would brush her arm, the small of her back. Small touches, not enough to call out in front of people, enough to make my stomach tighten. Around 9:30, after a few mediocre speeches and a raffle, I realized I hadn't seen Jenna in a while. Her purse was still at our table, her half-finished drink sweating onto the white cloth. I checked the restroom area, the balcony, the photo booth. Nothing. I came back through the ballroom more slowly this time, looking at faces instead of decorations. That's when I noticed Ethan's table. His chair was empty. His suit jacket, the one he'd been wearing earlier, was draped over the back like he planned to come right back to it. But he hadn't. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I walked out to the lobby. The bar there had thinned out. The valet stand was busy. I stepped closer, listening, and caught at the end of a sentence from the young guy running keys. "Yeah, he left about 20 minutes ago," the kid was saying to someone. "Nice car. Black Mercedes. He had a woman with him in a green dress. I think she works upstairs." Green dress. I felt my jaw tighten. I asked the valet as calmly as I could if he knew where they went. He shook his head. "Sorry, sir. I just park 'em." I stood in that lobby, watching the glass doors swing open and shut, feeling like someone had turned the oxygen down. I drove home alone. I don't remember the radio being on. I do remember every red light. At each one, I saw flashes. Jenna's hand on his arm, her face when she told me not to cling, that "can't wait to see that dress tonight" text. The story she would tell if I pushed too hard. "You're overreacting. It's just work. You're paranoid." I didn't sleep that night. I went out to the garage, flipped on the light over my workbench, and sat there in the smell of oil and metal, staring at the half-finished smoker I was supposed to deliver next week. Every excuse my brain offered. Maybe she got sick. Maybe they went to an after-party. Maybe he drove her home. Ran straight into the look in her eyes when she talked about him. Around 4 in the morning, I heard a car pull into our driveway. Headlights washed across the garage door, then cut out. The front door opened very softly, like someone who didn't want to wake anybody up. I waited, gave it 10 minutes. Then I went inside. Jenna was in the kitchen, back to me, pouring coffee like it was any other morning. Same dark green dress, but her hair was a mess, makeup smudged, and she was wearing a man's suit jacket that definitely wasn't mine. "Morning," I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. She jumped a little, then forced a smile. "Hey, you're up early." "Didn't sleep," I said. "Where'd you go?" She didn't look at me, just stirred sugar into her cup. "Ethan wanted to show me some campaign pitches," she said. "We went back to his office to go over some ideas. It got late." I stepped closer, studying the jacket on her shoulders. It was expensive. My name is not stitched inside the collar. "He keeps campaign pitches at his house?" I asked. She hesitated half a beat too long. "We swung by there after. He lives closer to the freeway, it was easier." "Mark, don't start. It was work." She finally turned to face me, and that's when I saw it. A faint red mark on her neck, just below her jawline, barely hidden by her hair. My eyes went from that mark to the jacket. "Whose jacket?" I asked. She glanced down like she'd forgotten she was wearing it. "Oh, Ethan's." It was cold in his office. I'll give it back on Monday. She said it like that explained why she'd walked into our house at 4-something in the morning draped in another man's suit. You forgot to give it back? I said quietly. Or you just didn't want to? Her jaw tightened. You're being ridiculous, she said. Nothing happened. We talked, we worked, time got away from us. This is exactly why I didn't invite you before. You twist everything into drama. I looked at my wife, the woman I thought I knew, standing there in another man's jacket with his cologne on her, with that mark on her skin, and I felt something in me click. Not explode. Not snap. Just click into place. The boys will be up soon, she said briskly, like we were discussing trash day. Please don't be weird in front of them. I'm going to shower. She brushed past me, headed for the stairs. I watched her go, listened to her footsteps fade. In 2 hours, our twins would thunder down wanting cereal. Our daughter would need a ride to work. Life would roll forward like nothing happened. But something had. I poured myself a cup of coffee from the same pot, took one sip and set it down untouched. Somewhere between the lobby and that jacket, a line had been crossed. I just didn't know yet how far I was going to go with it. That answer came the next afternoon, when I found myself standing in the aisle of the hardware store, staring at a wall of deadbolts, realizing I was done letting other people decide who walked through my doors. I didn't tell the kids anything that day. I didn't shout, didn't slam doors, didn't play detective. I simply bought the locks, drove home, and changed everyone while Jenna was out running errands, which I'm sure meant anything but. Each turn of the screwdriver felt like confirmation. I wasn't locking her out of spite. I was drawing a boundary she had blown past without even slowing down. By the time the twins barreled into the house after school arguing about whose project looked cooler, the locks were installed and the old brass cylinders were in a plastic bag sitting on my workbench like pulled teeth. My oldest, Ryan, noticed first. He's 17, quiet, sharp, the kind of kid who reads people the way I read Weld seems. Dad, he said, eyeing the front door handle. You changed the locks? Security upgrade, I said. It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. He nodded but didn't push. He must have sensed the storm forming even if he didn't yet know its shape. The house was calm in a way that felt unnatural. Too clean, too orderly, like it was bracing for impact. And impact came at exactly 6:18 p.m. Jenna's car turned into the driveway. I was sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold, watching the sky turn from pink to purple. She walked up the path, gym bag over her shoulder, still in her yoga clothes, hair pulled into a tight ponytail. She looked relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months, like her life outside this house was where she really breathed. She pulled out her keys, found the familiar silver one, and jammed it into the lock. Nothing. She frowned, tried again, wiggled it. What they? She looked down, then leaned closer, realizing the lock was different. Mark? She called through the door. What happened to the lock? I opened it slowly, letting her see my face before I spoke. I changed them. She blinked like she didn't understand English. Why? You didn't tell me you were doing that. Same reason you didn't tell me whose jacket you were wearing when you came home at 4 in the morning. Her jaw dropped for half a second before she caught herself. Mark, don't be dramatic. I told you we were working late. Working, I repeated. At his house. In his jacket. I could see the neighbor across the street pretending to check her mailbox. Watching. Jenna noticed it too. Her voice dropped low. Can we talk inside? Not on the porch like we're some reality show. I stepped aside but didn't open the door wider. Before you come in, you need to decide where you're staying tonight. Because right now, you don't live here. She stared at me as if she'd never seen me before. Then the performance kicked in. Eyelids softening. Voice trembling. Mark, what are you talking about? This is my home. You left with another man, I said quietly. So stay with him. Her lips parted in outrage. Are you insane? The kids live here. They're inside doing homework, I said, and wondering why their mom's been acting like someone who doesn't want to be one. That hit. I watched the flash of guilt, or maybe irritation, cross her face. Hard to tell with Jenna lately, they looked the same. Mark, you're blowing everything out of proportion, she hissed. Nothing happened. We were brainstorming, talking about opportunities. Yes, I had a drink. Yes, it ran late. Yes, he offered his jacket. That's all. Then why lie about going to his office when the hotel lobby camera shows you getting into his car? Her face went pale. She knew exactly what I'd seen, or what she thought I'd seen. You went back to the hotel? She whispered. I asked a simple question. I said. Valet told me exactly when you left and with who. I didn't need to follow you. She swallowed. A full, visible swallow. Mark, let me inside so we can talk without an audience. Please. Her voice cracked on the last word. I didn't budge. We'll talk, but not as husband and wife. That ended when you made your choice last night. From behind me, I heard footsteps. Ryan, hovering near the hallway like he'd been listening. He met my eyes and gave me the smallest nod. Not approving, not encouraging, just understanding. Jenna saw him too. Sweetheart, she said, switching gears instantly. Your father is confused. He thinks something happened that didn't. Mom, Ryan said, his voice steady. I saw the charges on the bank card. Jenna froze. What charges? She asked. But I saw her eyes flick right, left, calculating. The dinner, the wine, the hotel bar, all from last night, all signed with your name. She opened her mouth to answer, but nothing came out. So I finished it for her. We'll figure out the logistics later, I said. Right now, you need somewhere else to stay. I'll have your things packed by tomorrow. Jenna stepped back like the porch had tilted beneath her feet. You're choosing this, she whispered. You, Mark. You're destroying our family. Not me. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. The boys will be up in a minute, I said. You should go. She didn't move. Not at first. She just stared at me, breathing hard through her nose, like she was trying to decide whether to scream or cry or bluff her way back into the house. In the end, she chose the same thing she always chose when reality didn't go her way, retreat. She walked down the steps, got into her car, and backed out of the driveway without looking back. But the real storm started the next morning. At 9:12 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number. We need to discuss legal representation. Jenna wants mediation regarding marital property and interim support. My hands shook. Not from fear, but from disbelief at how fast she had moved. By noon, a thick envelope arrived from a law office downtown. Claims of controlling behavior, psychological intimidation, creating an emotionally unsafe environment. She'd rewritten 23 years of marriage into a story where she was the trapped, innocent wife escaping a tyrant. I didn't say anything to the kids at first. Didn't want to poison the well. But things have a way of coming out. That afternoon, my daughter Lily, 16, stubborn, heartbreakingly loyal, stormed into the workshop with her phone in hand. Dad, she said. Mom says you locked her out because she got home late. Tell me that's not true. She wasn't angry. She was scared, confused. I set down the drill I was using and looked her in the eyes. Lily, your mom and I are going through something. I won't badmouth her, but I will tell you the truth. I told her about the party, about the jacket, about the car, not about the neck mark. I didn't need to humiliate her mother. Lily's face went rigid, then soft, then something else. Something like disappointment layered with relief. I knew it, she muttered. I knew something was off. She's been different. She sat down on the edge of the workbench, chin wobbling. Dad, are we going to be okay? Yeah, I said, and for the first time in 24 hours I meant it. But nothing prepared me for what came next. 2 days later, Ryan pulled me aside, shut the workshop door, and lowered his voice. Dad, he said, I went through Mom's shared cloud account. Ryan, I know, he said, but you need to see this. He held up his phone. Messages, screenshots, GPS routes, photos, hotel receipts from the past 3 months. One picture showed Jenna in a restaurant booth, smiling across the table at someone whose arm was just barely in frame. A man's arm, the same suit jacket she came home wearing. My heart didn't break. It just hardened. Cleanly, quietly, like steel cooling under floodlights. That night, I sat at the dining table with every piece of evidence laid out in front of me. The kids wandered in and out, each one watching me with a mixture of fear and curiosity. I didn't rage, didn't cry, didn't crumble. I just cataloged everything. I knew she'd fight. I knew she'd lie. I knew she'd twist reality until she painted herself into the role she preferred, the misunderstood wife driven to seek emotion elsewhere. But I was done living in her story. The next morning, I called a lawyer. "I'm not here to destroy her," I said. "I just want the truth on the record." "Good," he replied, "because the truth is the one thing she can't spin once it's on paper." And that was the beginning of the quietest war of my life. One I intended to win without raising my voice once. The custody hearing was set for a cold Thursday morning, one of those gray Tennessee days where the sky feels a few inches above your head. I woke up at 5, made coffee I barely tasted, and sat at the kitchen table staring at a folder thick enough to hold the last decade of my marriage. Every receipt, every screenshot, every timestamped location route the kids had uncovered. I didn't feel angry, just steady, like I'd gone past the point where fury lives and arrived somewhere colder, calmer. My lawyer, Harris, met me outside the courthouse. Former Army, a handshake like rebar, voice steady as a level beam. "You bring everything?" he asked. I lifted the folder. "Everything." "Good," he said, "because her side is coming in hot." Hot was an understatement. When we walked into the courtroom, I saw Jenna sitting with her attorney. Polished, icy, the type who weaponizes a sympathetic tilt of the head. And Jenna, she looked like a version of herself crafted specifically for a judge. Hair smoothed back, pearl earrings, a conservative gray dress she'd never willingly wear in her real life. She was holding tissues like a prop, practicing quiet sniffles behind lowered eyes, as if she was the wounded party, as if the last 3 months didn't happen at all. The judge entered, papers shuffled, names were read. And then her attorney fired the first shot. "Your Honor," she said, standing with practiced poise, "my client fears for her safety. Mr. Walker has displayed escalating controlling behavior, including locking her out of their home, withholding personal belongings, and creating an emotionally hostile environment for both her and the children." I didn't react. I didn't even look at Jenna. But my lawyer did. He leaned over and whispered, "Stay still. Calm wins." The judge turned his eyes on me. "Mr. Walker, how do you respond to these allegations?" Harris rose. "Your Honor, we categorically deny all claims of threatening or controlling conduct. In fact, we have evidence that Mrs. Walker engaged in repeated deception, misappropriation of marital funds, and extramarital behavior, which Mr. Walker addressed only after months of provocation. We will demonstrate substantial misconduct on her part." Her attorney rolled her eyes like she'd heard it all before. The judge sighed. "Let's stick to facts, counsel." Facts. That was the one thing I had. Harris handed the judge a thick packet. Inside you'll find evidence of hotel charges, dinner receipts, and GPS routes for nights she claimed to be at work. You'll also see screenshots of messages from the individual she left the Christmas party with. Additionally, her son's affidavit includes her admission of an ongoing relationship with this individual while still residing with her husband. The courtroom went heavy and silent, like someone had shut a vault door. Jenna looked up at me, just for a second. Not with remorse, with panic. Her attorney stood quickly. "Your Honor, these so-called receipts and messages are taken out of context. My client was networking with a colleague and advancing her career while managing an emotionally distant spouse who refused to engage in marital counseling." "Did you or did you not leave your company party with this man?" the judge asked directly. Jenna's mouth opened, then closed. She glanced at her lawyer. Yes, but it wasn't." "And did you spend the night with him?" Another pause. "Yes, but things were complicated." "And did you use your joint marital account to pay for dinners, hotel drinks, and travel expenses involving this man?" Her lawyer tried to cut in. "Your Honor, we object to—" "I'm speaking to your client," the judge snapped. Jenna looked down. I didn't think it mattered," she whispered. "It was over right there. Not legally, but morally." The judge sat back, flipping through the papers, then looked at Jenna like he was trying to understand the shape of her choices. "Mrs. Walker," he said, "in light of this evidence, I am granting Mr. Walker temporary primary custody of the children. You will have scheduled visitation. Additionally, The court will consider Mr. Walker's petition for sole ownership of the home and business pending further review. Her attorney objected. The judge shut it down with a single raised hand. Jenna didn't cry. Not then. Not in the courtroom. She saved that for later, which came about 3 weeks into the custody arrangement. It started with my daughter, Lily, calling me from Jenna's temporary apartment. "Dad," she whispered, "can you pick me up early? What's going on?" Mom invited him over for dinner. The guy, her voice cracked. "She wants us to blend families and it feels wrong. He keeps trying to act like he's my stepdad. I don't want to be here." I was in the truck before she finished talking. Then the twins followed suit. "Dad," one of them said, "Mom's boyfriend bought us video games we already have and then got mad we weren't excited enough. And he keeps calling us champ," the other added, "like he's practicing." They didn't want to be rude. They just wanted to come home. Home. That word meant something again. Even Ryan, who tried to keep things neutral, sat next to me one night while I filed invoices in the kitchen. "Dad," he said carefully, "they fight. A lot. Mom and that guy. He keeps making plans that don't include her. And she keeps pretending they're more serious than they are." "Serious?" I asked. "Dad, he's texting other women. I saw it. She doesn't know I know, but she's catching on." A week later, it blew up. Not at my house. At hers. She called me, voice shaking. When I answered, I could hear her stumbling over breath and words. "Mark, he left." "Left?" I repeated. "What do you mean left?" He said it was too much drama. That he didn't sign up to deal with a divorce and kids and court dates. He packed his things and... A choked breath. "He won't even answer my calls." I didn't say anything. Let the silence sit. "Mark," she whispered, "I made a mistake." "I know," I said. "Mark, please, can we talk? Can we fix things?" I didn't hate her. I'd stopped wanting revenge a long time ago. What I felt was something else, clarity. "Jenna," I said, "you left the marriage months before I changed that lock. You just didn't shut the door behind you. I'm not reopening it." She started crying then. Not the quiet, graceful kind the judge saw. Raw panic sobs. "I don't want to lose everything," she said. "You already lost what mattered most," I said. "The kids chose for themselves. I didn't choose for them. You did." The final hearing came 6 weeks later. Jenna looked worn out, like the weight of her choices had finally settled into her bones. Her lawyer pushed for more time, more assets, more visitation. Harris countered with documented evidence. The judge didn't spend long deliberating. Full physical custody to me. Home awarded solely to me. Business protected as separate property. She'd receive a small financial settlement. No alimony. Supervised visitation until further review. When the judge read the final order, Jenna didn't cry. She just stared straight ahead. Empty. Like someone who'd walked herself into a room she didn't know how to get out of. Afterward, she caught up to me in the hallway. "Mark," she said softly, Can I see the kids tonight?" "They have school tomorrow," I said. "We'll stick to the schedule." She nodded, then looked up at me. "You really won't even consider giving us another chance?" "Jenna," I said, "the door you closed yourself, it won't open again." I walked away, not triumphant, not vindictive, just free. 6 months passed. The house grew warm again. The kids laughed louder. My business expanded. We added a sunroom out back where we ate dinner every Friday night. Life didn't feel like rebuilding. It felt like living for the first time in years. Every so often, Jenna would send a short message. "Tell the kids I love them. Hope everyone's okay. I miss them." The kids answered when they wanted to, or didn't. That was their choice. And one evening, while I stood in the doorway of my workshop watching all 3 of them play cards in the living room, I realized something. I hadn't just survived betrayal. I'd walked out of it with the only things that had ever truly been mine. My integrity, my kids, and my peace. If stories like this resonate with you, if you've lived through betrayal or rebuilt your life from the ground up, make sure to subscribe. More real stories are coming.